For more analysis, we are joined from London, Dr. Marcus Papadopoulos, the expert for international relations and expert in the Middle East affairs. Mr. Marcus, after greetings, what do you expect from the United States after the end of the truce after 2 days from now?
Well, the truce is in force, though it remains extremely fragile. The Strait of Hormuz is closed, and the American illegal naval blockade of the Strait of Hormuz remains in force. So we can say politically there is a deadlock. And I believe the only way this deadlock can be broken is through a diplomatic solution. And of course, in a few days' time, there will be another round of talks between the Americans and the Iranians in Islamabad, Pakistan. Militarily, of course, there is no deadlock because the Iranians won the war. The Americans, of course, they can return to bombing Iran, but they know that this will not win the war. They know that this will not defeat the Iranian government and it will not defeat the Iranian people. So militarily, the Americans cannot rely on this option. So the only option, as I say, is to secure a permanent truce. The problem, however, revolves around the Israelis, namely Trump and senior members of his administration are controlled by the Israelis, and the Israelis want the war to continue, just like the Israelis are continuing the war in Gaza and the war in Lebanon.
Dr. Marcus, from your point of view, is the American-Israeli targets are well explained in this crisis so far, or is there a shift or fragile situation between Israel and US and a gap in the targets?
I believe from day one, the Americans and the Israelis, in relation to Iran, were carrying out terror bombing. They were targeting civilians and they were targeting civilian infrastructure. Yes, they also targeted military installations in Iran, but their hope was that by slaughtering Iranian civilians, destroying civilian infrastructure, this would result in the Iranian people turning on their own government and deposing their own government. Now, this did not happen. And the Americans and the Israelis really should have read history a lot better, assuming, of course, they read history in the first place, because the Iranians are not only extremely religious, they are also extremely nationalistic. So the military option was a failure on behalf of the Americans and the Israelis from day one. Is there tension between the Americans and the Israelis behind the scenes? Yes, I believe so. I believe that all is not well between Trump and Netanyahu. However, again, this war must be seen in the context of the immense power and influence that Israel wields in America, and also in the context of the Epstein files. I believe Trump is trying to wriggle his way out of the vice, the Israeli vice that he finds himself in. But that is going to be an extremely difficult task to fulfill.
What do you think if Trump didn't continue to negotiation in the Iranian part?
Well, the Americans and the Israelis and the Iranians, will be meeting again. They will be having very candid meetings, which of course is imperative, is essential. And Is there a possibility for some sort of diplomatic solution between the two? Yes, there is a possibility. However, for the Iranians, they know that the Trump administration is in the pockets of the Israelis. Therefore, they understand that even if they were to secure a permanent ceasefire with the Americans, what's to say that in 6 months from now or 1 year from now, the Americans will not start another war with Iran because they are told to do so by the Israelis? That's the problem for the Iranians. But at the same time, the Iranians do not wish to fight a war indefinitely, especially a war with a military superpower. That said, however, the Americans know that continuing the air war against Iran will not defeat the Iranian government. The only way the Iranian government could be overthrown is through an American ground invasion of Iran, and this will not happen.
Dr. Marcus, there are some statements with the Iranian parliament saying Iran will not ignore any articles that I proposed, and there is no trust from the other side, and the Iranian response will be critical. So how do you read the Iranian statements in this time?
The Iranians have the upper hand in the talks with the Americans because the Iranians have the upper hand on the battlefield. The Iranians go to the talks in Islamabad with the knowledge that they survived the American and Israeli air onslaught. They survived. Not only did they survive, they also inflicted immense damage on American military bases in the Persian Gulf, making them in many ways impotent. They also inflicted massive damage on the Israeli military and on Israel in general. So that is why the Iranian authorities are so confident and are saying openly that they will not compromise on areas which they regard as crucial to Iranian national security. And the Americans are aware of that. And I suspect that if the Trump administration was to, hypothetically speaking, was to somehow break the Israeli hold over it, then they would be able to secure a diplomatic solution with Iran. But, as I can only reiterate, the Israelis control Trump and senior members of his administration. And that is the biggest obstacle between the Americans and the Iranians securing a permanent ceasefire. It is Israel. Israel is the problem in all of this.
Dr. Marcus, is there for a European can approach something to Trump to confront this escalation?
The European Union and Britain are controlled by the Western ruling elites or globalists. They will not help Trump militarily, politically, or diplomatically, not because they like Iran, not because they dislike Israel. On the contrary, they are pro-Israel and anti-Iran. No, they won't help Trump because they hate Trump, because Trump is in many ways at odds with the Western ruling elites. He is at odds with globalism. Trump opposes NATO. Trump opposes immigration into the Western world. So they see the Britain and the European Union, or I should say the Western ruling elites, see this as an opportunity to let Trump hang himself, to destroy himself, in the hope that someone like Kamala Harris will become president. Someone like Kamala Harris, who is pro-Zionist, pro-Israel, anti-Russia, anti-Iran, anti-Christian, anti-Western, and who seeks the destruction of the Western world and Western civilization.
When we say Kamala Harris, she has the report that the Israel have driven Trump to have confrontation with Iran. Do you think that this statement is direct?
That is for public consumption. Like Biden, Harris is a Zionist, but she has created an illusion that she and the Democrats now oppose Israel, and they want to tackle Israeli influence and power in America. That is an illusion, because they want to win the midterm elections in America this November. They want to win the presidential election in America in 2 years from now. No, the Democratic Party and the Republican Party are both Zionist. They are both globalist. They are both enemies of mankind. They are both enemies of Christianity. No one should trust the Democrats or the Republicans.